Welcome. Today, we're diving into something absolutely critical: building a crisis readiness playbook. The whole point is to shift your organization from constantly reacting to things to a state of confident readiness. Because, let's be honest, disruption isn't a question of if anymore, it's a question of when. So the real question becomes, how are you going to meet it?
So let's just start right here with this fundamental question. Is your organization built to bend, or is it built to break? And look, this isn't just some catchy phrase. It really gets to the core difference between being resilient and being fragile. It's all about having a strategy that lets you absorb a shock, adapt on the fly, and just keep moving forward, instead of shattering at the first sign of real trouble.
Okay, so first things first, we have to talk about what it means to move beyond just reacting to stuff. You know, constantly being in a state of putting out fires is absolutely exhausting, and boy is it expensive. It means you are always playing catch-up. So let's dig into the real cost of being unprepared and figure out how to get ahead of that curve. And this really lays out the two paths you can take. Over on the left, you've got the reactive approach. It's chaotic, it's incredibly stressful, and it is so costly. We're talking money, morale, reputation, you name it. But then on the right, you have the prepared approach. This is all about anticipating what could happen, which lets you respond in a way that's swift, strategic, and controlled. It is literally the difference between being a victim of circumstance and being the master of your response.
You know, true readiness isn't about one single action. It's a mindset, and it's built on these three pillars. First, you have to anticipate what might be coming over the horizon. Then, you need to actively work to prevent crises before they even have a chance to start. And finally, you have to build an early response system so you can act effectively the second something happens.
So, how do you actually do all this? Well, it all starts with forecasting the threats. Think about it like this. If your organization is a ship, you would never, ever set sail without checking the weather first, right? This part is all about building that early warning system so you can see the storm coming long before it hits. The whole process follows a pretty clear three-step method. You start wide by scanning the environment for any factors that could affect you, both outside and inside your own company. Then, you turn that focus inward to map your own vulnerabilities. And finally, you figure out how serious it all is by analyzing the potential impact. Let's break down that first step.
So step one is environmental scanning. And honestly, the best way to think of this is like it's your organization's personal early warning weather satellite. It's not just for seeing the storm clouds that are directly overhead, it's about looking way out on the horizon, gathering intelligence, and spotting developing patterns that could cause you problems down the line.
And that satellite of yours, it needs to be monitoring two very different areas. First, you have internal threats. These are the ones that start inside your own walls. We're talking things like a critical system failure or just simple human error. And then you've got the external threats, the big storms coming from the outside, like major market shifts, supply chain nightmares, or natural disasters. A good scan has to be looking at both.
All right, so once you've scanned the horizon for potential storms, the next logical step is to map your own weak spots. It's time to take a really honest look at your own ship and ask that tough question: where are the leaks? Where are we most exposed? This whole process is called vulnerability mapping. It's basically a rigorous self-assessment to find those specific points of weakness. It's exactly like checking the foundation of a building for cracks, because even one tiny overlooked flaw can cause the entire structure to fail when real pressure is applied. This quote right here, it just captures the next step perfectly. Because finding a vulnerability is one thing, but understanding its potential consequences, that's everything. This shifts your focus from just making a list of problems to seriously evaluating risk. You have to ask, what really happens if that crack in the foundation finally gives way?
Okay, so with all these potential threats, how on earth do you prioritize? Well, you map them out against two things: impact and likelihood. So take threat B here. It's highly likely to happen, but the impact is pretty low. Annoying for sure, but maybe not your top concern. Threat A is the opposite. It would be devastating, but it's super rare. But threat C, that's the one in the danger zone. It's both high impact and highly likely to happen. That is where you focus your resources first.
Now look, all of this analysis, the scanning, the mapping, the prioritizing, it's pretty much useless without a plan. And that's what this next section is all about, actually writing your playbook. This is where all that insight gets turned into a concrete, actionable guide that your team can actually use when the pressure is really on. A great crisis playbook doesn't need to be 1,000 pages long,
But it absolutely, positively must provide clear answers to these 3 fundamental questions. First, governance. When a crisis hits, who is in charge? There can be zero ambiguity. Second, communication. Who is the spokesperson? Who approves the messaging? You have to control the narrative. And finally, activation. What specific event or signal launches this plan into action? Everyone on the team has to know the trigger.
And finally, a plan is only as good as its execution. You have to move from just having a plan to putting it into practice. A playbook that's just gathering dust on a shelf is completely useless. The real goal here isn't the document itself, it's the capability and the confidence that document builds within your team.
And this is what that capability looks like when it all comes together. When a crisis actually hits, a prepared organization's response is swift because there's no time wasted on indecision. It's strategic because you're making smart choices based on a plan, not just on panic. And it's cohesive because everyone is working together as a single, unified team. This right here is the gold standard of readiness.
So we'll leave you with this question. After everything we've just walked through, what is the one small, tangible step you can take today to start moving your organization from being reactive to being ready? Because readiness isn't built in a day, but you know what? It always starts with a single action.